endless list of things you made us go get.
Yeah,
Had to go
honestly.
to 6 butchers, a fishmonger.
Seriously, I had to like go pick basil, like in like it's like
A
what the heck?
meadow.
Ridiculous.
Charlie, if
Nice,
we
nice.
cook along with you in real time, when will it be? When will we be eating it?
6 to 8 hours.
Okay.
It's only on my computer. The
Or
volume isn't going
come
to
here.
the.
I already have a
Oh, you
batch
know
I
what?
made last
Maybe.
night. Okay, cool. You wear look at that. Look what Susie and Casey are wearing, Bob.
Just for you, Chaz.
Bob, I was the officiant at their wedding in Tuscany, Siena, and I gave them that. That was the wedding present. They spent all this money, and all they got was a shirt from me.
Wow. Double Fiorentina.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, let's begin. All right. First of all, let's talk what this is. This is Ragù Napoletana. It is the equivalent, the Brits would call it their Sunday roast. In northern Italy, they would make a bolognese sauce. So typically, you'd wake up to the smell of the sauce in the house. One of the when I was a kid, I would go every Sunday to my grandmother's house, and we'd have dinner for about 20 people. And this was the basic part of the dinner here. We're going to make the sauce. We're going to make some additional things like Braciole. I'm going to make one kind of Braciole, which we make in Calabria, and then one kind of Braciole, which they make in Napoli. Give you a little flavor for things. Everyone does it a little bit differently. This here are the meats from John's. Look at this. John's Butcher started April 17th, 1939. And now that was with John LaSavio and Marie. And now his sons have taken over, Vinny and Nick. And it's in Scotch Plains, New Jersey. It's been voted best butcher 6 years in a row. I don't even know if you guys can get this in Connecticut or California. I don't think it works out that way, okay? This is the same guy that gets all his meats he's been getting in the city since the 30s. Wonderful people and fantastic product. They make this for me. This is sausage that they made yesterday with no fennel, just simple salt and pepper for me. Over here is a meatloaf mix for the meatballs, which is a third veal, third beef, and a third pork. All right. These are the pork ribs, spare ribs. And over here are the beef short ribs. I made this exact same dinner last night, and we'll show it to you. So this is a duplicate of what I made last night. Let's first start with the Braciole, okay? The first one we're going to make is a Calabrese Braciole, all right? You take the meat. The meat is top round sirloin. The meat is top round sirloin, and it is cut thin. And now we put in, this is the Calabrese one. We put breadcrumbs, parsley, salami. Now, Carrie will not let me eat this tonight. She's decided to give it to a nice woman here in Westfield who feeds the homeless. So this dinner is going to feed the homeless tonight, but not before I steal some. I did not make it with the picante. Did not make it with the hot salami because I don't know who's going to eat it tonight. Okay. Now they put. This is very Calabrese, Alana, for you and your family. You're from Calabria, right? They use eggs in almost everything. Carrie learned, my wife, the first time she had eggplant parmesan, which actually has eggs in it, and lasagna in the South has eggs in it. So this is a typical sort of Braciole you would get in the South. I've never seen them make it in the North. So I don't know. So you got the egg, you got the salami, you got the parsley.
Yeah, you can get rid of all those squares if you want.
Wait. Sorry, Chad.
It's okay.
On the
Go ahead.
Okay.
Salt?
Chopping up the egg, putting it on. Also breadcrumb, also parsley. That's what you have?
Yep. Parsley, and then I'm going to show you, very important, a little olive oil here, right? Sort of bind it together. That's Crazy Bean in the back, screaming. Then garlic. The one thing, I cut the garlic really small and thin, okay? Now, I didn't show you this, but when garlic gets old, a lot of parsley. You know, when we were kids, if you had a bad breath from garlic, our mothers would give us parsley to chew on. And if you look at these things that have, you know, for your breath, for your stomach, they're all made with parsley oil. Parsley combats garlic. So it's a really good thing to put into whenever you have a garlicky dish. Now we have some cheese, Romano cheese. Romano's Robusto, remember? And Parmesan cheese. So Alana, did you get that? What's in here? I need a yes. I need an affirmative. Okay. Now we roll this up. Okay. I put it here. And I'll show you how we do that in a second. Now we're going to make the one from Napoli, which is very different, although there are some similarities. First of all, I'm going to use the guanciale. I'm going to take some guanciale and put it across it. You could use bacon or pancetta. These are golden raisins that I soaked in white wine. So they come back to a little plumpness. You'll see when this is cooked, they'll be really plump in the inside. Okay, so you take the golden raisins. Pinoles, big thing in Napoli. You see those cookies, you get Easter cookies and everything. Okay. Then they take Romano cheese. And this is Scaramuccia cheese. It's a cheese that is made, it's hung into a ball. This is, I've cut it in half. This is a mild cheese. And they use parsley because we're going to have a little bit of garlic, remember? And they also use basil. I'm going to get some fresh small basil here. The smaller the basil, the more tender and more flavorful it is, in a nice flavor. It's not as pungent when you get big basil. It's sweeter. Thank you, Bug.
Hey, Charlie, is this scamorza? That's smoked, correct?
Yes, it's dried and it can be smoked. This one's just dried,
Okay.
but it can be smoked too. Now, I have the two of them here. Got some butcher twine. If you don't have butcher twine, just simply, you could do toothpicks. That's right. You could do toothpicks. How you do this is not, I mean, if you're a professional butcher, this is not a professional show, unfortunately, but it's pretty simple. You go through, you hold it like this underneath. You bring it across, okay? Then you bring it under. Bring this across here. And Tie it up. Okay? Same thing with the next one. Underneath.
Oh, I've wanted to do Braciole for a long.
That's Gina. I could hear her.
Hey, you're looking studly, Charlie.
Yeah, I feel studly, kid. Chicks dig me a lot. You guys probably know that already, though. Yeah.
Hi, Mom.
I am.
Okay. All right. That's it. Really simple. Now, okay, we're going to start cooking our sauce. See the two bracioles there? I'm going to use grapeseed oil because with this, you can get different kinds of grapeseed oil. It's a higher smoke point. So when we cook this, we can sear the meats. So I've got the pan hot and I'm putting in the oil. Can you see that? I got this a little too hot probably, but that's okay. Now, the secret to, go ahead.
On the meat, just to know, are we seasoning it yet, or just the egg and parsley for now? Don't season.
Just no season.
Okay.
Just what you have in there. It's going to be seasoned plenty in this. The secret to this, or should I say the distinction between this and others, is that the pieces of meat are quite big. Now you're going to see how marbled this is. This is, as I said, this is John's. You can see that. This is beef chuck. This is a cheap cut of meat, if you will, but this is prime meat. Look at that. No idea what that sound is.
Hey, Jim, go on mute, please. I think it's coming from your mic.
Now, this is very important. We sear the meat. Boom. See the crust that's forming? Beautiful.
Charlie, for the meat, is that in the same pot that you're putting the tomato in, or is that separate?
This is a one pot meal.
Okay.
And what I do is I take out this beef and all the pork products that I'm going to put in here. I take it out and I'll put it in this tray that's right here, right next to it, because I don't want to crowd the meats in here. Because if you crowd the meats, you won't get a nice brown crust, because what will happen is the meats will steam. See how nice that crust is there? That's going to make it later when we cook this for 3-4 hours. That's going to break down, but the outside's going to stay. It's going to have a nice caramelized flavor, and it's going to stay tender in the inside. But you got to develop that crust on the outside.
In the braciole right now, where is that?
They're all right here. What I'm going to do now, I think that's Nick talking to me. I'm going to take, Matt, sorry. I'm going to take this out. I'm going to take these out and put it here, and then start to do the rest of the meat. Can you guys see the crust that's forming on these things? He keeps calling her. Huh? How beautiful is that? Hey, Katie. You guys watching all this? Any questions so far? No questions?
Yeah, we have a question over here. Contos Tobacco family. John Tobacco has a
Okay,
question.
go ahead.
Hey, Charlie. We always
Hey.
called it gravy when we made it with meat.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Instead of calling it sauce, we would call marinara sauce, but we would call
This
this
is,
gravy.
yeah. Now that's very traditional. Like in Trenton, New Jersey, they call it gravy too. Um, we never called it gravy. We called it ragu.
Okay.
And ragu is sort of their name in Italy, in southern Italy. They call it ragu, and that's where they got that name for that sauce. That it's in a jar. That's sort of the original jarred
Right.
sauce, but it got its name from that. But I'm not fussy either way. Whatever you feel comfortable doing. But your point's the right one. That it's really more a meat sauce. They would refer to as gravy, and a marinara they would call it marinara. Where'd you grow up? I can't remember now.
I grew up in the Bronx, but my
Yeah,
my
that makes
gr-
sense.
my grandparents are from Sicily and
You want to
Calabria.
give me a bigger
Yeah.
one of those that I can.
No, and that's why you're good looking and intelligent. But
Right, exactly. Luckily.
the other part is that what I was saying is that the Bronx, almost all the people there are from Sicily or Calabria, right? And they're the same
Yes,
people that went to Connecticut, Long Island, and New Jersey, right? So,
that's true.
like you guys did, and so that's why gravy is sort of standard. They call it a gravy, but honestly, I could care. I don't see any difference in it. Look at that crust in that. Beautiful. All right, now.
Charlie, there used to be a really good club team called Calabria.
Calabria Aurora. It had a great manager, a guy named Bob Bradley. Uh,
Your father was the manager of that team. I just played.
well, I meant in spirit. Now, you guys noticed that I did the Braciole last, because they're more delicate. And he cut this very thin for me, John. So he cut it really thin, and I don't want it. I don't want to overcook them because I don't want it to fall apart. Now, traditionally, what they'll have in a restaurant or in Napoli, this isn't really a restaurant meal, although some restaurants will have it, like a Rayo's or something in the Bronx might have a Sunday sauce. But, this is a home meal. And they say, if you're in a rush, just don't make this. Don't, you can't fake this. This is all about patience, and you got to take your time. If you don't take your time, if you're not patient, then make something else. Go make yourself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Hey Bob, any good butchers where you live?
I'm asking Lindsay right now.
Hey Bob, what
Paul's
did they
got
have?
some. Paul's got some guy in Philadelphia that'll send out whatever you need.
Yes, those guys I definitely know. There's on Third Avenue, I think it is, or Third Street in Philly. Really good butchers and really good a cheese store. Yeah, really good place.
I'm gonna get you Paul's
Philly's
guy.
all right. Now I don't want to burn the bottom of the pan. I want to create a nice bond, which you should see. It's not like there's little pieces, and it's cameraman. You can't get good help these days, you know. Okay, question. Any questions?
Who taught you how to do this, Chaz? Where did you learn everything?
Well, this is my grandmother. You know, there's a famous chef, Tom Colicchio. He's from Elizabeth, New Jersey. And there's a bakery called Saracino's in Elizabeth that he talks about in Elizabeth called Saracino's. And one of the great thrills that I would have is my dad would buy like 10 loaves of bread and the tops would be sticking up. And I'd rip the tops off and dip it into the sauce. And last night I had a moment because I made the other batch last night. And my daughter came in and she goes, "Oh my God." And she kept dipping bread into the sauce. So I had a moment. I was a little bit teary. But, you know, the one thing I want to say is that they make this all over Italy, but everyone makes it a little differently. You know, and that's the nice thing about Italy. Even here in the States, you know, they make it a little bit different, because they take it from where they're from in Italy. A lot of these, they take the culture and they bring it with them. We have a place here in Kenilworth, New Jersey. That's everyone from there is from Spielinga, and it's a little town, a mountain town, I believe. And so the entire town moved here together. So they'll have their customs and their food the way they do it. The other thing I like to do, Nick, is I like to always read, and now I watch videos. So, like, if you're learning another language, it's fun to. I already know Italian, thankfully, but you know, if like sometimes I'll even just to understand a little bit, I'll listen to someone make a tortilla in Spanish, so I see how they do it. You know, and you learn the language that way too. All right. So I got a nice brown crust on some of these. Okay, now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move everything over. Just a little bit. And you see I'm bringing the meat back in now. This is not for people. My vegan daughter would not like this. Okay. Now that I have this, I take whatever juice I have from here, put it in. Okay, now come over here. Most important, we're now going to get onions. That's about, because Nick's going to ask me, that's about one medium to medium large onion. Okay. I would, a little garlic now. That's about a clove of garlic, maybe.
Charlie, not sure if someone asked this already or if you said it, but what kind of heat are you working with right now?
What kind of what?
What level is the heat at? Is it low, medium, high?
Oh, yeah. The heat is high right now because I'm trying to sear it. So I have it on medium high. If Care can look at the flame. Can you see that? I got it on two sides of the burner here. This is a big pot. My dream is I want to buy this big restaurant pot that goes across the whole thing, but my wife is, I don't know if she agrees with everything I do in life. Okay, now I'm trying to get the onions translucent, and because it's hot, the flame's hot here, I want to keep moving the onions. A wooden spoon is probably best, and this is a very thick bottom pan. So, but you could make this in a higher pan. That's what most people do it that way. A stock pot, if you will, a pasta pan. And get the onions nice and translucent. And now I'm going to put the basil in, okay? Now, important that you tear the basil, okay? And I'll explain why. If you have a ceramic knife, you can cut basil. If you don't, because when you cut it with steel, you end up breaking it and it makes it bitter. So you should always, if you don't have a ceramic knife, you should just rip the basil all the time. Now I put a lot of basil in here. I think it's nice. Gives it a nice flavor. Now I'll start integrating the meats. Questions? Okay, now I've integrated the meats with and I still have the flame pretty high. Okay? What am I doing, kid? Oh, pull it toward me. Okay. My cameraman is very cute. My first wife, for you guys who don't know her. Okay. So, now I'm going to do something that's a trick that most people don't know. And it's cocoa. This is black onyx cocoa. Simple cocoa. It's not sugar. It's not like Nestle's cocoa, but cocoa adds an intensity to the meat and to the tomatoes, and adds a real intensity. So they do it in Mexico and some Mexican cooking. Carell and I talked about this, right, Carell? Carell's still there, or he leaving me? Now, once the cocoa's in there, it also helps caramelize the meats. brings out its flavor. And now I put a whole tube of this in, if you got it, of double concentrate organic tomato paste. Always get it from Italy. I don't like Hunt's. I know it's so bitter to me, but I like this one. It has a real sweetness to it. But if you have Hunt's, don't be mad at me. Just keep going.
If we don't have paste, what's a good substitute?
No, just put more tomatoes in.
Okay. What about not ketchup?
No, please don't put ketchup in. I'm begging you.
What are you, crazy?
Because, wow. I wish you guys could see my face right now. It's just mortified.
I don't know what to get you, Charlie. Just trying to keep you laughing over there.
Well, that worked out well for me. It did help a lot. Okay. Now, get this going here. Okay. Now, we're pretty much almost done with this. And you see everything's coming together nicely in the pot. All right. Now, can you see that? If you don't have paste, don't worry about it. The paste will give it a more of a deeper, richer flavor. But if you don't have it, don't worry about it. The meat, all this stuff, the cocoa, the cut of meat. I get this from John's. This is really, really high quality prime meat, right? Which you don't really have to have in this type of recipe because they're made for poor people, this recipe. People, in the farms, they make this. Like I said, every Sunday, if you go anywhere in southern Italy, there's a grandmother making this. And it's a tradition that's lived, and it's the most beautiful thing in the world. I bet there's a couple people in.
How many pounds of chuck did you use?
Because I made two pots, so I got 6 pounds. So 3 pounds feeds around 12 people. With all the other stuff in it. 1 sausage per person. I would say, you're going to see I have meatballs too, a couple per person. A big piece of meat per person. Now, as I mentioned to you, in Italy, and in Napoli in particular, they put other cuts of meat in here. They put a veal shoulder. I saw a great thing that I really wanted to do. Now I'm putting wine in, right? The flame is hot. I'm using a Chianti, and it's a beautiful 94 points, 2016 Castello Valpaia. Beautiful. See my little rooster there, Chianti Classico.
How much?
You can tell us about that. Well, I OD'd. I think you put about a cup in. I put at least 2 cups in, and it's okay. It's just going to add flavor. But I put at least a cup in if you can. It's good. It should be very good wine. Don't cheap on the wine because you're going to boil out the alcohol, but what's going to remain is the flavor. Okay? Now you see that's coming together pretty nicely, right? Now I got the flame going really high. I mean, I could eat this right now. What I was saying is they have different cuts. I saw one the other day as a brisket. They cut the brisket open and they make like a braciole inside. They take breadcrumbs and salami and eggs and they put it in this and they sew it up. I have a butcher's needle and thread, but I thought it would be like too big of a deal, big deal today to do. They also always get the rind of the pig, and they actually make a braciole with the rind, the skin, and so that's almost always done in Naples. One of those. But you see the richness of the sauce, if you could see here. It's a real deep, rich sauce with the cocoa and the tomato paste and the beef juices and the pork juices. Now, I let that I let that let that cook off a bit. So the flame is still high. Careful, careful. The flame is still really high.
Jazz, I'm sorry, we're very behind. How much
Don't
tomato
worry.
paste? How much tomato paste do you think we should use? We missed you on the video there.
Did you have a tube? Do you have a tube or a jar?
We have a tube.
Use the whole tube.
Okay, thank you.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry
And-
about it. Use the whole tube.
And sorry, one other. How much parsley?
You know, there's no parsley in this yet. This is basil.
Okay, great.
I throw a lot of basil
Great.
in
Thank you.
with the onions. No problem. I'm not in a rush. I just don't want to, if people are, you can take your time. Like I said, the most important thing is you take your time with this. All right?
Thanks, Jazz.
So now, what else? Go ahead, guys. Questions? I'm slowing down for this. Gina, nothing? Jim, Bob?
I want to come over for dinner.
Hey, Chaz, it's Tony. What's up, buddy?
Oh, Tony. Tonotes, how are you, kid?
Hey, how many's that feeding there? You got enough for me?
I got enough for you. My wife is making me give it to homeless people, and so I'm a little bit bitter. But I made a whole nother batch, the exact same amount last night. I have it here. You're going to see it with meatballs that we're going to make now. It'll feed around 20, 24 people what I'm making. So
God bless you, man. That's why we love you, brother.
God bless them, man. These poor people. This actually, what we're doing is we're feeding the people who feed the homeless. I ran into the priest yesterday. I asked him for a blessing. Oh, she's taking it. Oh, the people. Yeah. Okay, take it back. She's taking it to the homeless people. And she's a saint, this woman. And so that's good. My only job is to hand it off to Carrie. Okay, now, the tomato puree. Is everyone caught up?
The wine, and I'll do some more basil.
Put the basil in with the onion. Okay? And then take your time. Don't put the wine in yet. Make sure everything's done, then put the paste in, then put the wine in. Okay? Now, I mentioned to you we had tomato puree, right? I put it in here because, do we have any jars left? Yeah. This is the jars I've been using. Muti's pretty good from Parma. And it's passata, as I mentioned. It's just it's the puree of the tomato, no seeds or anything, right? Now, what happens is when you pour this out, there's always a bunch of stuff left in. And so what you do is you have to put cold water in, shake it up, and put it back in here. Otherwise, you'll end up leaving about a quarter bottle in each one. So that's why I put it in here. All right. Now that the wine has dissipated, the alcohol's dissipated, I'm going to put this whole thing in. This is five. I'm sorry for screaming. I apologize. This is 5 of those jars of passata and about 1 jar of water.
Again, we're doing like half the amount, or not even. We're doing.
You don't have to. I mean, I have a lot of meat here.
That's like flavor glass. Yeah.
Just a little bit more. Okay, good.
Go ahead. One at a time. Questions? Now, you're supposed to put equal amounts of water as you put in puree.
Just for the meatball. I don't think you have to rip the meat off. You're saying just don't cut.
Okay. You guys watching this? I just put cold water in, and I'm going to put a little more in. So equal amount of water as puree. So if you're using 3 cans of puree, just put up 3 cans of water. If you're using four jars, use 4 jars. This is it. You are now done. Now, you see how thin this is? You're like, what is this? That's not what I see as sauce. Now, you need to, traditionally, what they do is, in Italy, they cook this for 8 hours. After 4 hours, they take out the meats. But I would recommend, if you have Braciole, take them out after 2 hours, 2.5 hours, because otherwise they're going to just fall apart on you. In fact, I had a couple fall apart on me yesterday. You're now going to let this come back to a boil, and then you just simmer it, okay? Now, let me show, I'm going to make the meatballs first, then I'll show you the final products all around, all right? So let this come up. Does everyone get a good look at this? It doesn't look like much. It's like, well, what the hell's going on here? But you're going to see after 6 or 8 hours, don't forget, I'll tell you again when you take the meat out, after 6 or 8 hours, you're going to see that it's just this beautiful, thick gravy. I think that was Alana's family, right? Ask me about the gravy. Yeah, you'll have a beautiful gravy. All right. Now, let's make the meatballs. I have a couple tricks that I do. And again, there's every Italian grandmother makes it differently. And they all have the best tricks. And who the hell am I to say if there's a right or wrong? I do mine in a KitchenAid mixer. You don't have to. Okay? Now, I've seen people put breadcrumbs, milk, water, just beef. Some people put pancetta in. Napoletans put raisins in with pinoli. Some people put those are sort of unusual things. Almost everyone puts in cheese, parsley. Oh, some people put in onions. I don't put in onions at all. But let me tell you, this is my mother's recipe. So, good or bad, this is what we do at our house. We take the 3, you guys would probably get at the store, called a meatloaf mix. Excuse me. It's veal, pork, beef, equal parts. This is about, I don't know, 1.5 pounds maybe in here, because I made the meatballs already yesterday. Now what I do is I take bread, in this case here, I took this Italian boule type bread, and I cut off the crusts, and I took about half of it, and I put it into this bowl. Then I took some milk, and I soaked it in milk, and that's it. That's the end product. I also chopped it up really fine. There's Bean again. Some dog has the audacity to come down our street. Okay. Meatballs. Okay. Now, you can put this in this type of bowl if you want. Okay. And if you do that, I'll do it for you. Because is everyone doing this by hand? Hello? Is everyone doing this by hand?
2 groups doing it.
Yes.
Yes, by hand.
All right, so then I'll do it by hand for this time, okay? What I'd like to do, if it's by hand, is to spread it out, right? So you see how I've spread it out there? Now, this is one of my tricks that I love to do. I take the garlic cloves and I saute them lightly in olive oil. And I get them cooked, but not, burnt or anything like that. But I find that garlic, without having a little bit of cooking, will be really, it could be bitter. It's too strong of a flavor for me. So I like to cook the garlic first. That's a trick that I do that I don't see many people do that. Now, where's it in here? This one here. Okay. I'm going to use a garlic press just because I find it it's much easier and it spreads it out better. Okay.
Hey, Charlie, did you say you use the inside of the bread or the outside of the bread in the milk
I
mixture?
use the inside, the inside of the bread.
Okay.
I've seen different people use different things, but I think the inside will give you a softer consistency and it makes more sense. Now, I want to show you this. Can you guys see in this, there's a little vein in there? See that? When you guys have, the older the garlic is, the more green that vein is. And that is bitter. I always take the vein out. The other trick I do is I take that little bit of olive oil that has the garlic in it, and I drop it in there like that. So you see, the reason I'm putting it in this bowl like this and spreading it out is so I can get this mix spread out. Okay? Now, if you remember, what did I say is the one key for garlic? Parsley. Thank you. Lots of parsley. Don't fool around. Parsley is the secret weapon in this meatball mix. Second secret weapon. Okay? I give you a couple tricks. The first was cooking the garlic first. Second is don't be bashful with the parsley. It'll counteract the garlic. Third, people put one kind of cheese in. I put two kinds of cheese in. I put Romano and a lot of it. And I put Parmesan and a lot of it. Nick, you're asking me, I say half a cup each for this, for about a pound and a half. Eggs, two. I'd use two for this. I could probably even use three. But let's start with two here, see where it goes. Now, you need, where's my thing? Here's salt. You're going to salt it. You see that? I use kosher salt. It's easier to measure. It's thicker and it's less salty than like a regular table salt. Then the other trick is lots of pepper. Okay. Now you need a firm hand. To mix it up. Everyone with me?
With you.
Okay, cool. I'm going to put this in my mixer because I'm going to be another 10 minutes here doing it this way otherwise. Okay. I can't believe all these family secrets I'm giving up. Okay? That's the final product. Okay. So now you want to wet your hands. The reason you wet your hands, the meat won't stick to your hands when you do it. Take a clump about that big. Okay, why don't you take a look over at this sauce? Okay. Yeah. Now, stir the sauce. You're going to have to stir it sort of every 10, 15 minutes or so, take a stir. Okay? Now we're going to cook a couple meatballs to show you guys. Then I'm going to show you the final product. And you're going to hopefully have a nice, successful dinner. Okay. I use the original, what do I want to say? Original nonstick pan. It's cast iron, $20. I've had it for 20 years. So that's kind of hard to beat that. Again, I like grapeseed oil. It's flavorless. Now, another thrill I would always have, get the pan hot to medium. You want to get it medium, but get it nice and hot. You want to get a fair amount of oil in here. In Naples, they fill it halfway across the meatball. My wife always yells at me about too much oil, so I try to be a little careful. But you need oil in there. Otherwise, it's not going to work. I'm letting it get hot before I put the meatballs in. I might as well just continue to do some of these. Now, the meat, going back to the meat that's in there, okay? Keep in mind that that's really braising, but it's almost, you want to keep the flame really just a little like a plurp, 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 plurp. You don't want it to be so hot. You've turned it down now from what it was before.
Charlie, was that 3 blurps
And you
or
want
4?
4 blurps at all times.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, I needed to be clear. 4 blurps, yes. 4 blurps.
Love you.
I'm giving away these secrets. That's okay. It seems like it's just family in the other end anyway. So we'll keep the family secrets going. You'll know the oil's ready when it starts to shimmer. I don't know if you can get a good picture of that, Care, or not. Hey, Tony, when are you going to do your raviolis for us? They looked amazing.
Jeff, they'll be cooked tonight, my friend. We made 82 raviolis last night.
Well, what are the other people going to eat, Bear?
I only made them for me.
Right, exactly. That's what I figured.
I'm trying to do one night a week where my daughter and I cook something or we make something, and that's I called my mom and we said, "What's the secret recipe?" I'm sure they taste nothing like my mother's, but It's more about the experience.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a great thing. A great thing. My vegan daughter, who I love dearly, Isabella, calls me a murderer when I'm making things like this. So that doesn't work. And the other one's taking an exam right now upstairs and told me to hush it a few times already. There's the meatballs, Karen, to show those. Look, when you make the meatballs like this, a lot of people will just put them in the fridge like this right now, right? And you could leave them there and even freeze them. This is fine. You could freeze them probably up to a week without much of a problem at all, right? Obviously put them in something, plastic container or something like that's best. You can let them sit. A lot of people, to brown them, I know this, a lot of people, especially in restaurants, they dip them in flour first. They roll them in flour, and that makes them brown and crunchy. I don't really think you need it, personally. I do it this way. Okay. Now, getting back to this meat sauce. You see, it's a little bit bubbly over here. I want to try to tame it as much as I can because it's going to go for a while. But keep in mind, when we started it, you're going to want to start pulling out the sausage and the Braciole after about 2.5 hours. The other thicker meats, and then you'll see the ribs will start to fall off the bone. Pull those out too. But some of the big chunks of meat you can even let go for like 4 hours. Then the meat will, you take the meat out and put it aside. Okay? Now let's look at the meatballs here.
As for when you pull out the meats, do you leave anything in there the entire time, or do you take all the meats out ultimately at some point?
You take them all out. Don't let anything stay more than 4 hours.
Okay.
And that's only big chunks of meat. You see when I cut those huge chunks?
Yeah.
Now, everyone screws up once in a while because yesterday I think I left them in there a little too long, some of them. And so I had some of the Braciole, one of the Braciole fell apart. So I just want you to be careful. That's why I say, pull the Braciole out after 2.5 hours or something. That's also why I say use a wooden spoon if you can. You don't want to break up the meats. You can do it. Now, and the other thrill I was going to tell you, we have funny words in Calabria. We call a Braciole, at least in the town where we're from, meatballs that are squashed like little hamburgers and fried. And so that's what we call a Braciole. I don't know why. And so typically the two treats that I would have that I actually like better than Sunday dinner was my grandmother would make me a couple of Braciole first with Italian bread, and then I dip the corner of the bread into the sauce. No double dipping allowed. And there you have the meatballs. Now, another way to do the meatballs is to cook them right in the sauce. One of the problems with that is that they'll fall apart quite often. So, and they're much tastier when they're fried. That's just the reality. You could bake these if you want. You can make them with just beef. I make them with turkey quite a bit. And I do basically the same exact recipe, except instead of bread, I use ricotta cheese. And because I find that the turkey's pretty hard, and the bread, I'm sorry, and there's no fat. So I use the ricotta cheese with the parmesan, with all the same ingredients you saw, and it's pretty good. I mean, it's a really, I mean, I have to say, it's really good. It's, it's not one of those things that you change 20 ingredients. You just change the base, but everything else is the same, and it tastes quite delicious. Now, when they're done, I'll give them a little longer. Are you guys doing so? Who's doing it at home so far? Is anybody doing some meatballs right now? No.
We're doing the meatballs tomorrow. Contos tobacco.
Okay, good. The smell is like ridiculous. I'm about to put my nose in the boiling oil.
Chaz, we're doing the meatballs. We're just very behind you.
Okay, it's okay. Now, we're going to repeat all this stuff in a second, but here's what we do. Pull the meatballs out. And I put them on a little, basically a cookie tray. A cookie, where you cool cookies and stuff. And then I'm going to show you all the final products because I made this yesterday. First, let me put some more meatballs in. Okay, now, this is what the final product looks like the next day. Let me turn the light on there. Now you see this is the Braciole here. Braciole's here. That's one of the Bracioles that fell apart. This is the beef, the sausage. This is the short rib in here. And so what you'll do now, we don't want to heat it twice, but this is when people say all the time, oh, it's much better the second day. This sauce is really made to be made on a Saturday like this, and then Sunday you serve it to everyone. My grandmother would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and start doing this, and so we'd all eat around 1 o'clock. That was the big thing, and you have to have some. It's like I bought rigatoni there or paccheri, big pastas, because at least make sure they're short pasta. Penne is the sort of the least you should do. There's a lot of different varieties, but a short pasta, because you're going to see how thick the sauce is when it's done. You won't be able to twirl, an angel hair or something like that. So what we do now is we heat that up traditionally, and the first thing my grandmother would bring out pasta, rigatoni usually. We call it nonna pasta. My kids still call it nonna pasta for their nonna, my mom. A friend of mine used to say rigatoni, the pasta of the 80s. I don't know why. Anyway, it is, hearty and holds up to the sauce. Then they bring out the meat and the meatballs. Now, let me show you the sauce. These are the meatballs I did last night, and I put them here in a sauce. Now, this sauce will kill an angel hair or pasta. But here are the meatballs that have been taken from there and just put in the end product for about 20 minutes. And that's it. Now, believe it or not, that sauce here is going to be thick like that. So after you take the meat out, Matt, you were asking, right? And Nick, after you take the meat out, and as I said, don't leave the meat in there more than 4 hours. Start pulling stuff out the sausage, the more delicate things, the Braciole in about 2.5 hours. And then you could start, playing with it a bit. But in the end, it should be, it'll be just the sauce boiling down by itself. Now, they traditionally do it for about four more hours. 2 hours is plenty, honestly. You'll see when it gets this thickness. I did this one for 4 hours. It's almost too thick, in a sense. I mean, you can almost eat that with a fork. Do we try a meatball? I think we try a meatball. Oh my gosh. Okay. Wow. That's insane. Look how delicate that is. That's it. Buon appetito, eh? Question?
You're a hero. Do you ever cover the sauce, or you just keep it open?
Nope. Some people do. You can leave it not covered, but partially covered, right? Now look at this. This is boiling way too much right now. So I'm going to bring it way down at each side. But don't forget, these things have like a life of their own for a while. It's going to take a while. So I will stir it now. I mean, look at the difference in the sauce. This is like water, and this one is like, I have to say the meatballs are insanely good. And I'm sorry, Carrie, the homeless people are going to be missing a couple of meatballs tonight. Just a couple, I promise you. All done, guys. Any more questions before we go?
Hey, Charlie?
Yeah.
This is John Tobacco. My grandmother occasionally would put chicken in with the other meats.
She's Calabrese, right?
I'm sorry?
Is she from Calabria?
Yes.
Okay, there you go. In Calabria, it's not called Ragù. It's called really more, it's called Ragù, but it's called con carne vari, which variety of meats. They will put chicken, a turkey leg sometimes, all different kinds of meat, because some people might not want meat. Of course, it's all cooked together and contaminated, but it is chicken's obviously lighter and less fat. We from Calabria always had chicken or turkey in it, a leg in it or something, and people it would be the sort of the specialty they would go after.
Well, thank you.
How's that, John?
That's excellent. Hey, Charlie, we really look forward to this every week, so thanks very much for doing it, really.
Me too. I got a feeling it's going to be just a few of us, and that's fine by me, because these seem like an enthusiastic group.
Well, you're an enthusiastic chef, so.
I'm not a chef. I'm just a home cook, and all these meals are for home.
What's next week?
Bob, Tony, did you guys hang in there for this?
Chaz, I'm still here with Lindsay. I'm just pissed that you haven't invited me over in so long that I have to watch you on virtual to understand what's going on.
You know what? Lindsay, listen to this. My idea that we're going to have is that we cook a meal with the great managers of the world. Your hubby being one of them. And then I'm going to, I cook the meal either at my house or your house. And then we film the whole thing and we talk football and we do things. How cool is that going to be? Tony, you signed up for that, right, Tony?
Yeah, you can do it, guys. I'll watch you. Thanks for doing it, Chaz.
All right, guys.
Chaz, love you guys. Make sure your family's safe and sound.
Thanks, Bob. You too. And everyone, Tony, Katie, Alana's, Concos's, Nikki, everyone watching. I don't even know who's watching anymore, so forgive me when I miss the name. Really, thank you very much. You make my day. Love you.
Love you, Chaz.
Thanks,
you,
Chef.
Thanks, Charlie.
Bye. See you
See you
soon.
then.
Arrivederci. A domani.
Grazie mille.
Be good, everyone.
Ciao, ciao, Casey, Susie, Tutti.